Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you so much for our time together. Have you ever had a conversation with yourself? Now, whether you like it or not, every one of us talks to himself. But you need to be careful about listening to yourself. Let me show you what I mean. Luke chapter 12, beginning with verse 41. Peter asked him, Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone? Jesus answered, Who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. I tell you the truth, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, My master is taking a long time in coming, and then he begins, and the story goes on about how he began to do wrong. He says to himself, have you ever noticed how we can convince ourselves of things? Have you ever sat down and really thought about the conversations that you're having with yourself as you convince yourself to do things that are wrong? It's a very interesting conversation when you begin to speak to yourself and you're beginning to convince your conscience that it's all right to do this. Now, you know what I've learned to do in my little short life? I've learned to be very careful when I start talking to myself. When I have to start convincing myself of something, when I have to start talking to myself about something, then I start being very careful what I'm doing. Am I doing as the psalmist did? I'm speaking to my soul to be encouraged in God? Or am I trying to convince myself that something's all right to do that's not all right to do? A wise man once said, be careful of a man who listens to his own advice. I think that would be true. Listen to what you're saying to yourself and make sure that you obey the word and not yourself.